riders this week have expressed their views on the use of the whip once again, with the new rules set to come in with a little bit of bedding in time before Cheltenham. Paddy, what's the feeling in the jockeys' room at the moment about how these rules are going to go down and how they're going to be applied?
Yeah, I think it's hit home a little bit now. Like at the very start of the stick rules, I was extremely disappointed. I was never asked my opinion. Been sat in that weigh room a long time. I'd like to think I've done a lot of things in the game, and yes, I was disappointed. And you know, right now I hear lads, they were starting to raise their voices around the weighing room, and I said, lads, voice your opinion. You know, it's never too late to speak out. And yeah, they've realised there's an issue because Adam Wedge, for example, was at Leicester and he gave a horse a lovely ride. You just sit down, you watch it, you think it's normal, but he was told in the new rules he'd have got 12 days. Like, it's going to be completely different, and personally I think it's something that's not going to work.
Why?
Just because of the riding style of hitting them in a totally different way. It's very hard to get the whip back there. Forehand, backhand. It's for some of the jockeys it's next to impossible unless their hand is going to go to the sky. There's no way they're going to be hit them in the right place. It's impossible. So to me, there's a possibility it could look even worse. I think the way it is at the minute is fine. What they want to do is maybe reduce the hits and bigger the ban. If you go 1 over, the penalty is going to be a lot harsher, and if you go 2 over, it's going to be even more harsher. There's ways around it, but I think it's going to be a lot more difficult than people think.
Okay, you used your whip in the backhand position when you won on punctuation on Friday, and appeared to get the response that you desired from the horse, and the horse won.
Yeah.
So anybody watching that would think, well, hang on a minute, you didn't seem to have a problem using your whip in the backhand. And I think the rider of the runner-up, who is Harry Skelton, well, he's used it in the forehand there, but you've got your whip in the backhand position, Paddy, and don't seem to be having any problems.
No, but I don't, because look, I was very far back in the saddle. I'm quite tall. You know, I've got long hands. It's different for me. And I didn't. People say, "Oh, you did that because the new rules." No, I didn't. I just didn't have time to get it into the forehand, and I didn't. The rhythm was there, so I just left it. It was nothing to do with the new rules. Yeah, it's easy for me. And if you watch my style, I get more stick about it. But I sit extremely far back, and I can get my arm back there, no problem. What we don't want to see is if you go to the new rules and people come in short with the whip, that's going to be a disaster.
So here's the thing. So as everybody knows now, I was on the whip review steering group, and within that steering group are 2 representatives from the weighing room. Yeah. One jumps, Tom Scudamore, one flat, PJ McDonald. Now, I am not seeking to heap all the responsibility for the new regulations on them. At the end of the day, the BHA board has to ratify the recommendations, and it's them who decide what appears in that rule book. Not the steering group and not the jockeys, but the British Horse Racing Authority. However, nobody on that steering group is going to try and put forward a suite of recommendations if they haven't been rubber stamped by the 2 representatives of the 2 weighing rooms that are in there, one of whom is a senior figure on the Professional Jockeys Association board. So this is where the disconnect comes for me. And as again, I'm not trying to pump all the responsibility onto Tom Scudamore, but he's been very eloquent in the last couple of weeks saying that he thinks it's a perfectly workable rule. Yeah,
well, he's entitled to his opinion, but so are the rest of the jockeys in the weighing room, and they're starting to speak up. So, as I say, you can. From my experience, I personally don't think it's going to work, and people are, you know, one person in particular has been saying, why are we coming out now? Well, that same person slammed the door in Aintree one day and told us not to get out of our seats to go out and ride in the next race when the previous rules came out. So it's never too late to speak.
Go on, just talk me through that.
When the previous rules came out...
So that's back in 2012?
Yeah. The door was slammed, and we were told not to go out and ride. And we didn't want to. We were like, fine, we won't. But do you know what I mean? It's never...
Well, one of your own
riders
one of our own, tried to organise a mutiny.
Well, yeah, it was the bands were just wrapping up, and this was their way of dealing with it. No problem. We sat in the seat. Didn't happen. But it's never too late to speak. People are saying, why are they speaking now? Let them speak.
Mm-hmm. Well, I spoke with the BHA last night, and they assured me that if jockeys wanted to speak, they would still listen. This is the statement from the BHA. The BHA undertook extensive technical discussions following the publication of the recommendations earlier this year by the steering group, which itself included 2 leading current jockeys. Those full and frank discussions were held with representatives of all interested parties, and the feedback provided was listened to and considered carefully. Ultimately, what's been agreed upon is a package of measures designed to develop a more considered and judicious use of the whip for encouragement, improving the style and perception of its use. We recognise the importance of working with jockeys, which is why we've engaged with them and their representatives to make sure they understand the changes being brought in through communication and education. We'll be happy to continue with such engagement prior to the implementation of the new rules and penalties and throughout the respective bedding in periods for both codes. That's fair enough, isn't it, Paddy?
Yes, they're willing to, like they say, we can speak, and I just think that there is time to still speak.
Darren, as an owner, as a punter, perhaps more importantly in this regard, how do you feel?
I'd like to make 2 points on that, if it's all right.
You can make as many as you like.
I don't know what Paddy thinks. I don't know how you can put it on a number, so whether it's 12, whether it's 14. So if you've got a jockey, for instance, hitting the horse in the wrong place 6 times, clearly wrongly, and then you've got a jockey that's hit the horse 12 times correctly, might be a loose horse, or can you really put a number on it? Should it not be looked more into how and the reasons that they've been hit? I don't know if you agree with that. I don't think a number can be correct, surely, a fixed number of whip strokes.
Yeah, I think the whip number, it has worked majority of time since they brought in the number, but I do know what you're saying. But to mention jockeys riding at the moment, I always look at someone like Harry Cobden.
Yeah.
He knows when to hit a horse,
yeah.
and more importantly, any jockey when not to hit a horse.
Yes.
And that's to your point. But that's got to be left to the jockey's discretion.
Yeah.
And I think, the number is sometimes quite difficult.
But there's one more point from an owner's point of view, and I think this is right. So if we just look at, this is one thing I think is totally wrong. So Ashtown Lad, for instance, wins the Beecher with the new rules. Let's say I'm watching and the horse has been hit, for instance. If the rule's 12, he's been hit 13 times. Mm-hmm. You get presented with your trophy as an owner, blah, blah, blah. But I know a week later they're coming to get the trophy back from the house, horse is going to be disqualified. How the hell is that going to work?
Yeah, that's been a bone of contention.
Well, how's it going to work? You tell me.
Dave, what do you think of that from a media and communications point of view? The part of the new ruling is that disqualifications, if a jockey goes more than 4 over the 8 or the 7 in flat racing, will be deferred and heard by a panel on the next week. And the betting industry has been heavily behind that.
You understand why the betting industry, because it's clean on the day, the winner gets paid out, but it's the owners who suffer, and also the people who back the second. If you back the second, you're watching coverage on racing TV, you know that Jockey X has hit that 19 times, that horse is going to lose the race in 48 hours, but I'm not going to get paid out. You're accepting a trophy that you know is going to be returned 48 hours later. That doesn't sit comfortably with me, but nor does the prospect of how it's going to be policed. So we're going to have people sat in front of screens counting all the way through races, coming up with like a score sheet for jockeys at the end of each race, knowing who might be in trouble, who's not. It's going to take an awful lot of understanding. I mean, hopefully they won't need to. Hopefully the rules will be followed. I mean, the new WIT rules, they took a bedding in process, but I'd not come with that delay. I know why they've done it, because it would be difficult. But they always say, imagine the scenario on the Grand National. If the Grand National winner is disqualified and it's live on ITV and they announce that he's been disqualified because the jockey's gone over 4 times over the limit. If it gets disqualified 3 days later, that's going to be in the ITN news as well. We're not going to avoid the public scrutiny of it. It's not going to disappear because the high-profile winners are getting disqualified away from the big day itself.
But is there going to be any discretion? You look at Harry when he won on Lamilos, the Coral Trophy a few weeks ago. He's got the loose horse. If he's hit the horse the amount of times he's allowed to, what if he's just trying to be safe and he's trying to correct the horse is coming in front of him? There's got to be some sort of...
You are allowed to count for safety as well as to count for encouragement. So it's 12 strokes or over for encouragement is the threshold beyond which you will be disqualified. And I mean, let's be clear what the point of the whip review was. It was first of all to ask the question: does the whip or the Procush or the foam padded implement have a position in the sport, have a place in the sport? Some people thought no, it doesn't. Some people think yes, it does. Others aren't quite sure. So to try and consider whether that was the case? And the answer to that has been yes, it does. The recommendation is yes, it does. The recommendations were quite happy with the number of strikes as things are at the moment, 8 and 7, but use of the whip, A, needs to be more judicious, B, needs to be better, and C, needs to be more palatable to a wider public. And perhaps most importantly of all, the second part of the equation is how are we going to stop the win-at-all-cost mentality and jockeys just disregarding the whip rules in the biggest races of all, Paddy? And really, that's the nub of it.
Yeah, and that'll always be the issue.
But will it always be under the new regulations? Because you're not going to go anywhere near
Well, I just
12
think
strikes,
if you
are you?
No, and I think the
So if you're not, why is anyone else?
no, but if the severity of the ban changes, which it
is doing.
Yeah, no, but if the severity of the ban changes with the way that stick is used at the moment, why can't that work?
Well,
And maybe reduce the number.
oh, so you would be in favour of coming down, but but deputations from the jockey said you can't change the number.
Did
The
they?
jockeys weren't happy with the number coming down.
Right. Well, look, we feel like we're going to have to change something, so that's what's in discussion at the moment.
And this is the issue, isn't it, Dave?
Absolutely.
Everyone's in agreement that things might need to be tweaked or changed, but it's very hard to find consensus as to what the most effective way of doing it is.
Quite what it is. I mean, what's clear, there's definitely been a disconnect with the jockeys through this process. Again, we have seen it before where the representatives, there was a senior member of the PGA on there, this hasn't been ratified by the whole weighing room. You probably would never get full weighing room support for anything anyway, but it's just, I think there's got to be a number. I don't think we can go around leaving it to the discretion of individual stewards on the day as to whether aesthetically it was unpleasant, was that order that was unnecessary. There has to be some sort of framework in place. I think that's right. I think if you start reducing the number, if you bring it lower and lower and lower, then you're going to go to zero quite soon. If you start bringing it down, if you say we're going to go from 12 to 6, what's the difference? Oh, well, we've still got the odd issue. Well, let's go 6 to 3 and it's 3 to 0. And if we've decided we need to keep it, we need a robust framework in place to do so. And I mean, we spoke to Paddy. If the punishment goes, if you go one over and you're not getting a caution, you're getting a week's ban, that's going to start hitting home.
To your earlier point, do you think really the noise that's been generated in the last week, do you think the forehand backhand issue is the major issue?
I really do, yeah. Yeah.
And is that what's exercising most of the jockeys, do you think?
I do, like the majority of them. You got like Tom Scudamore obviously went to the meeting, and as I said earlier, he's entitled to opinion. But you got maybe 80% of the other jockeys now saying, "Hold on, we don't feel comfortable about this." And yes, they want to come to an agreement, but it's just the style of race riding. When you're riding in a 3 mile chase and heavy ground, it's totally different to anything you could ever experience. And we're so aware of the welfare, absolutely, and the number, like we're mentioning 12 there. Well, if anyone's hitting a horse 12 times, I'm sorry, they shouldn't be winning,
Well, exactly.
Yeah, so we're really aware of that, but the number at the moment is 8.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, if we reduce.
But Harry Skelton got close to 12 in the big Newbury race.
Yeah, but I can't speak for Harry in the Newbury race, but he can't do that in a few months' time, or he loses the race.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is what the BHA's representatives have been going around telling you guys for the last couple of
know.
weeks.
I understand that, but I'm just saying the style of riding, Nick, is not as simple as, like I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The jockeys are willing to speak, and the number they're willing to speak about. And like we said, if a jockey goes 1 over and he's getting a week ban, it's a big difference to going a 1 over and getting a caution or a 2-day ban.
And that's it. The bans have gone up as well. So you think, in summary, I think you don't hate the disqualification idea because you don't think that anyone's going to get close to it, or that you're not going to get close to it.
I really don't think anyone will get close to it.
You don't hate the idea of much harsher bans and the idea that jockeys need to just take more personal responsibility for the way they use the whip.
Absolutely.
But you are bothered on behalf of a lot of your colleagues by the ease with which they can transition to a backhand whip use.
Yeah.
And do you think there are going to be a whole raft of bans come in, immediately these rules change or not?
Oh, absolutely. You know, as I said, it was brought home to the jockeys a couple of weeks ago. The stewards have been bringing the lads in when they're riding winners and saying, look, if you do this in the new rules, you'll be getting 2-week ban, or the bans will stack up and it will become, there won't be a lot of jockeys left riding. It'll be that difficult. So that's where the issue is.
What do you think the answer should be?
Look, we need a meeting. We need to sit down. We need to come to an agreement. But harsher bans, and if they got to reduce the numbers, like you say, you reduce them to 1 or 2. Where does it end? I know, but if we can all just meet somewhere in the middle and make it good for everyone, then we got to keep things going as best we can and be very careful of what actions we take.
How hard will it be for the Irish jockeys going over to Cheltenham, who haven't been riding under these rules for the month in the build-up, in the white heat of a battle at Cheltenham, to be able to adapt styles and adapt to the potential punishments that are in place?
It'll be next to impossible, and it's not just Ireland. All around the world, lads coming to ride over here. It's just totally different, and yeah, like I can't see it happening anywhere else in the world.
But you guys, when the last raft of changes came in, people said, oh, jockeys won't be able to count, they're acting on instinct. Time has shown you're perfectly able to count.
Yeah, but you're still riding the same style as the great jockeys did over the years. This is changing the whole style of race riding. It's totally different.
But isn't the idea that it changes race riding for the better? That it means that you think more carefully about use of the stick for encouragement until you really need it. As you said, if you're having to hit one 12 times, you shouldn't be winning the race.
Yeah, I do agree with that, but it's a style. It's a very unique style, and why should we? We're changing something that people are all of a sudden not feel very comfortable with. And I just, if we go to the back end, where does it go after that?
But you've kept the amount of strokes that you're allowed to use from the last regulations.
It is different, but I keep going back to the jockeys. I say that aren't going to be getting. It's the style. I don't know how, if someone's hand is coming up here, how that's going to look good to get back there with the whip. That's what I think.
Okay, so aesthetically, you're not convinced that it'll be better than before?
Absolutely not.
Okay. This is going to be interesting to see how this plays out, Dave.
It's going to be a big story, isn't it? And not just when the regulations come in, what's going to happen over the next month or so. I mean, clearly jockeys are being tapped on the shoulder now, told what would have happened.
And the timing of it as well, it's just like crazy, a week. Is it a month before Cheltenham Festival? It's just, you're expecting jockeys, it's just, you start, Anton starts the start of a season. If I would be all for it, if something new was coming in, you start at the start of the season and you go from there. Not a month before the biggest festival in the year.
I think that's a good point.
But when do you bring it in?
Start of the season, like Paddy said.
The start of which season?
Next jump season.
Yeah, but what's coming up straight up? The Derby will be 3 weeks after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be the exact timing for flat and jumps, I don't know, does it?
We have variable timings for... No, you can't really, because you're jumping all year, you're on the flat all year.
It's, there's not going to be a perfect time, but a month before Cheltenham couldn't be a worse time.
Okay. I mean, I think, last point on this, a lot's been written and talked about, Dave, to do with public perception, and that the BHA's bowing to people who don't know anything about the sport and don't care about it. Self-evidently, given the way that the rules have changed, that is not the case. Otherwise, there would be no use of the whip for encouragement. It would have gone. No,
absolutely not. I mean, Lydia wrote a piece for us recently and referred to the social licence that racing has, that to allow us to use animals in sport for our entertainment. And yeah, there's a but that's not at play here. If that's what was at play here, there would be no whip. The whip would have gone now.
Well, what's been recommended here is that the people who were asked and have put views forward have come to a view that there is an ethical defence of the use of the whip for encouragement.
Absolutely. And had they not done so, the whip would have gone, this would have been a very different conversation, that they've accepted it as a part of the sport and we can defend it.
The interesting thing as well, Darren, is that I don't know if you read the quite interesting interview with the new chief executive of the RSPCA a couple of months ago, where he said that he'd been led to believe almost by the previous BHA administration that the whip was kind of on its way out, and was rather disappointed that it was there to stay. It sort of goes to show you what the sport is contending with.
Yeah, I think if you lose the whip I think Paddy would agree, the whip's there quite a lot for safety for the jockeys as well sometimes to correct those. Is that correct?
Definitely. You need it.
Subscribe to Racing TV's YouTube channel now to watch more great races like this.